We are going to be spending a lot of time together today, so we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to LPT Realty. I'm going to give you a tour of LPT Connect. We're not going to spend as much time as we usually do on that today because we're going to see a major change in our LPT Connect coming up, but I definitely want to give you some time to get to know that system. We're going to talk about some business building activities. We're going to talk about business building conversations. What are the universal building blocks of any real estate career? We're going to spend a lot of time this afternoon talking about working with buyers. We're going to specifically talk about negotiation. When does that come in? Actually, the spoiler alert, it comes in from the very first time you meet someone. And then we're going to talk about maximizing your marketing with LPT Realty. I'll go into that a little bit when we do our review of LPT Connect. We're going to talk about building a business later in the afternoon, talk about some simple structures you can create around achieving your goals. And then we're going to do a social media review with Amy Savalas at 1 p.m. So we're going to try to break for lunch at 12. We may even get to break a little bit early, but we're going to break at 12 for an hour. And then if you'll come back right on time at 1 p.m. Eastern, which I think that's only 10 o'clock in the morning over there in Las Vegas. And then we're going to do an introduction to Dot Loop with Amanda Hannon, and that will happen at 11 a.m. And so that's our itinerary for the day. I wanted you to know we have a plan. Is there anything missing from that you wanted to talk about today? Because I can definitely pace myself so that we can hit on anything that you guys are interested in. That sounds pretty comprehensive to everyone?
Sounds good.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Taryn. Kelly says looks great. Awesome. Fantastic. Let's go. All right, so let's meet Robert Palmer. And I'm going to make sure you can hear my sound. So definitely give me a thumbs up if you have trouble hearing.
Okay, so Robert Palmer, you know who he is. Well, yeah, but not him. You know the one. I'm Robert Palmer, president of RP Funding. Yeah, that guy. You've seen his TV commercials for 10 years. You've seen his commercials on the couch, at the sports bar, on the elliptical at the gym. Everywhere you go, Robert Palmer is telling you he'll pay your closing costs on a home loan. And that's what he does. He's paid over $100 million in closing.
Is everyone able to hear the presentation? Thumbs up? Yes?
Yes.
And you can hear it? Okay, good.
And counting since that first commercial aired in 2010. Now, the skeptic in all of us will certainly question that. Why would this guy pay out of his own pocket to save the consumer fees that have been the industry standard for decades? Let's go back to the beginning, and I mean way back. As a child from Lakeland, Florida, Robert's mother, like many others, struggled to make ends meet. At 10 years old, there was no allowance to be had, so Robert bet on himself. He packaged and sold homemade cookies with self-made labels featuring his name on them. From there, he understood that the quality of his product would directly reflect the reputation of his name. Years later, Robert would be forced to return from college to help his sick mother with her struggling mortgage company. This is where he would learn the tricks of the trade in the mortgage industry. He would also learn through his competitors how to milk the most money out of clients through junk fees and hidden costs, just to turn around and sell that mortgage to the big banks. He learned how these tactics could ruin lives and eventually crash the market. So Robert bet on himself again. From the ashes of the crumbled housing market, he built a new mortgage company, and like his very first business, he put his name on it. His business model was clear: go straight into the consumer's living room. In 2010, Robert Palmer entered our homes during halftime of Sunday Night Football and introduced himself as the primary Central Florida alternative to the typical money grab financing companies. But he didn't stop there. He then hit the radio airspace with his hour-long show, serving free financial advice to help people climb out of the housing market wreckage. Now, the skeptics were plenty. He would fail. His overhead would devour it without those added junk fees. But the secret was, overhead was Robert and his wife and a handful of loan officers originating loans out of an office the size of a broom closet. And whatever profit they made went straight back into the advertising budget, producing more and more commercials to send his message directly to the consumer. And guess what? He proved the skeptics wrong. He bet on himself, and he won. With every mortgage closed came word of mouth referrals. RP funding was real. The savings and simplicity, it was all real. That guy on TV, he's not lying. He really did save me thousands. From there, things snowballed. Over the next years, Robert Palmer would begin to be known across the I-4 corridor as a financial guru and a marketing titan. He would build a variety of marketing tools to help real estate agents better brand themselves all across the country. His brands would be prominent at national trade shows, in addition to being honored with many prestigious entrepreneurial awards before the age of 40. Robert would be asked to be keynote speaker at marketing seminars, graduation ceremonies, as well as local and national real estate conventions. And yes, that is A-Rod. Robert would also become prominent in philanthropy, giving back to countless charities and causes, donating $100,000 alone to the Special Olympics. Soon Robert would take his marketing prowess to the next level. Betting on his name again, he would put his brand on sporting venues across Central Florida. You can find Robert Palmer Company's branding across the Amway Center and Camping World Stadium, not to mention the complete renaming of his hometown Lakeland Civic Center to the RP Funding Center. RP Funding would also become the primary jersey sponsor of the Lakeland Magic. And in 2017, Robert began his role as professional sports team owner with the purchase of the Jacksonville Armada Soccer Club. Through his rise, Robert has never strayed too far from that 10-year-old kid selling cookies in Lakeland, gaining trust from his customers and the reputation of his name. From day one, Robert Palmer has bet on himself and won. Now, if you've ever been to Vegas, you know, when you win big, you cash out and you walk away. And at just the age of 40, Robert Palmer had created a self-sustained legacy company that could provide for his family for generations. And his family was growing. After decades in the public spotlight, Robert accepted a new position as dad. And this position was a full-time job. Although the industry assumed he would make a return, Robert wasn't so sure. But looking into the eyes of his baby daughter, Robert gained a new perspective. He had a new goal. He'd made his mark. Now it was time to help others do the same. So Robert Palmer launched a brand new real estate company to help agents from across the country promote their brand, bolster their success, and grow their own business. He gave them all his tools, his support, and his resources. So after decades of betting on himself, now Robert Palmer's betting on you. Welcome to LPT Realty.
All right. So what are our core values? The core values of LPT are a little different than other companies, especially because we have the idea of empowering agent choice. And that's why we have both the business builder and the partnership compensation plans. And then we have agent and team-centered branding. So your team's branding is going to stand out in front of LPT's branding. And in the states that allow it, we don't even have to be as large as your brand. Now, there's many states, including Florida, that require the brand of the team to be the same size as the brand of the broker. But in states that that's not required, as LPT agents, we're not required. It's just whatever the state requirements are. We also have redefined agent compensation. And here's something we're going to spend a lot of time with today, our brokerage-powered marketing. And this is a hurdle that a lot of new agents have a hard time overcoming because they're new, they don't know where all their resources are, and sometimes it's hard for them to get listings because they don't have the flashy packets and programs that teams have. And large agents. So LPT stands behind our agents, not in front of them. So here are the 11 rules of listing power tools. They start with strategy rules, and the first is to always focus on lead generation, always give a presentation, show up like no one else, and to know your numbers. And we're going to talk about all of these things today so that you have a solid foundation on our 11 power rules. Prospecting rules to generate your own leads. All of you are on teams here in our Teams Growth Plus New Agent Bootcamp. However, you'll still be generating leads yourself within the team. That is expected, and hopefully you're all prepared for that. Never neglect those you know. So your team leader's likely to ask you to import your contacts from your phone and your database and your sphere of influence into the overall team database. We're going to talk about why that's so important. Get out and meet the neighbors. Real estate is a contact sport, and so if you're shy, you're going to have to overcome that or find a way to still get out and meet new people. Use single property marketing. Robert calls this unselfish marketing. Unlike a lot of other real estate companies that really agents will do a lot of marketing of themselves, LPT really believes that if we put the consumer first by really going out there and marketing their property, whether it be digitally or with our classic print collateral, we are exposing ourselves while we're exposing that property to the largest buyer pool. So unlike other companies that are more about promoting themselves, we're about promoting listings for consumers. We're going to win the battle of the sign every time. You'll see that LPT signage is extremely enhanced with a lead capture QR code that will help you gather more leads from the signs. And that's where we really support teams, because teams have listings, and those listings will generate more leads than the average real estate company. Here at LPT, we trust classic marketing. We really believe in multi-level marketing. We have not abandoned the print collateral just for digital marketing, although our digital marketing really stands out above other companies as well. And we don't ask for referrals, we inspire them. So those are the 11 listing power tool rules, and hopefully we will enhance and expand your knowledge of these tools and these rules throughout the day today. So how many of you have explored some of our listing power tools? How many of you are using the postcard campaigns, or the buyer power pack is especially important for buyers agents on teams? So have you explored any of your power tools yet?
I haven't had an opportunity to, but I'm very excited to.
Awesome. And Kelly said she looked them up. Anybody else? Most of the tools that you'll be using are the open house power packs, and as well as the buyer power pack. So here are just some of the power tools that are available to you. Every listing at LPT is afforded a free listing power pack, and that is just for the charge of shipping. And so there's only the shipping fee. Everything else about that pack is free. We have our buyer power pack, which you can purchase a $99 buyer power pack or a $199 buyer power pack, depending on how many items you want. We also have the magazines that are available for individual sale. The buyer power pack will actually service probably 10 to 12 buyers, as opposed to the listing power pack, which is just exclusive to that one listing. The open house power pack has over 188 pieces that help you expand the exposure of an open house that you're doing, and hopefully increase your traffic and then the likelihood of you getting a lead from that open house. We also have our Agent Essentials our Agents Essentials starter pack. I believe that's $99 plus shipping, and that that is 250 business cards and then a sample of each of the magazines that we use. The luxury collection materials, the important thing about that is to let you know, even though LPT has a luxury division, a division where our luxury agents will gather together and have masterminds and do things as a unit. You do not have to belong to the luxury network in order to order luxury collection materials, which is an upgraded power pack, upgraded exposure to the home digitally as well. But you can purchase that luxury collection just based on the price point of the home. You don't have to be a part of the luxury network to order luxury materials. And then we have tons of social media assets, and I'm going to show you those, and those are especially important for those of you who said you are newer to real estate. It's a great way to keep a professional image in front of your social media. So I'm going to show you how to find those as well. So you want to build your marketing profile within LPT Connect, and I'm going to spend some time showing you our LPT Connect system. One of the things that you want to write down is for those of you who are taking notes or like to take notes, Motivational Monday is every Monday at 11 a.m. And so this is the direct connection with Robert Palmer, our founder and CEO, and he actually will update us on the market, update us on things that are happening at LPT, because we're a very, very young company, just 3 years old, and so there's still a lot happening that we're growing every day. And as you may know, we have excitement of an IPO possibly happening this year. So lots happening. So you want to tune in to Motivational Monday every Monday at 1 o'clock. Every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. You'll see right here where this says transactions, that will change. So on Monday, you'll see a button here that says Motivational Monday. You simply click on that button and you will arrive at the registration page for Motivational Monday. Likewise, on Friday, we have real estate. This reminds me, I forgot, I have to resume the recording here.
Recording in progress.
Apologize. So you can also click on Real Estate First Friday. That's at 11 a.m. every Friday morning Eastern. And that is where Matt Hodge and Louis Furman interview top agents with the very best suggestions on how we can grow our business. As a matter of fact, Pamela Tucker did an amazing interview on the open house back in February, and that is recorded if you want to find it. I'll show you how to find that. So otherwise, if you don't see anything here with the button, you can also access our main stage. So the main stage is where we have our top entertainment, if you will, or our top rated training with the executives of the company. And so you'll see in here, you can go to the calendar and you'll have the main events for the week. So we have Motivational Monday, Real Estate First Friday. Also here you'll find our live events at Lake Mary headquarters that you can attend. We have our 2-day lab coming up next week. So that is the main stage. One of the really important things you want to do when you come here to LPT also is to get to your state circle. And mine's not going to look exactly like yours because the state circles, I'm a part of all the state circles. But if you come in here and you go under support into your state circle, that's where you'll be able to connect with your state broker. You'll also be able to see your state calendar that will keep you up to date with your brokerage events in your state. Any questions so far? Now, one of the things, we're going to move through some things pretty quickly today, so you might want to resource, especially those of you who said you were in the business only less than a year. You want to come up here under trainings, under agent essentials. Under agent essentials, you'll see there's a calendar. Within that calendar are all of the training events that will happen. Amanda's going to come in just about a half an hour. She's going to go through all the dot loop stuff. She's going to go pretty quickly through that. And you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that was fast. So you can come in here and watch some of our recordings as well. So we always have training here daily. One of the important things to do, which I didn't show you, but I will do in a minute, is to make sure you set your preferences. So all of my times are in Eastern time, but for someone like Kelly, who is in Las Vegas, you're going to come up here and you're going to set your time with your preferences under your profile. And this is something that really has sidetracked a lot of agents. They'll come to a class. It's really sad for me because I am in the middle of a class or at the end, we're just wrapping up and boop, here comes somebody from Texas just joining our class and it's over. And so one of the things you definitely want to do is come up under here, under preferences, and make sure that you're setting your time zone. And some of you may be trying to follow along and do this on your computer while team leaders and top agents are so generous. Kristen, I'm not sure if she's listening in right now, is a super generous team leader who's happy to share her techniques and what she does to succeed. And so, again, we're going to do a dot loop class today with Amanda, but if you want, you can come in here and watch a dot loop from start to finish, a longer class that gives you a little bit more detail, talking about the 8 essentials of real estate, superpower websites, providing the buyer consultation. There's lots of stuff in here. Jerry Farrell is another one of our great trainers. He does a launch series. So whatever you're missing today, you can absolutely come in here and discover. So anytime you're lost here in LPT Connect, just come over here and press that home button, that LPT Connect button, and it'll take you. Here is one thing I absolutely want to show everyone. If you go down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see it says digital buyer presentation. A lot of agents are like, I didn't know there was a digital buyer presentation, because you have to kind of scroll down on your screen to find it. For those of you on Teams, you're probably likely going to work with buyers, and you may be at an open house and you may not be able to connect with it. And unfortunately, because I'm a leader, I don't have the digital buyer presentation available to me. I'm going to show you a screenshot of it a little later. But the buyer presentation will not replace your buyer power pack, but it is great because it meets the minimum requirement for getting a BBA signed. And so if you find yourself without any kind of paper document, or you don't have anything loaded up into Dot Loop, you can use that digital buyer consultation. You can edit it, you can delete pages, you can make it use all 12 presentation pages, or you can take it down to just a BBA and a little bit about you. Whatever you'd like to do is available in that digital buyer presentation. Then we also have, from our main screen, we get to Dot Loop. And I'm not going to go into Dot Loop because that's what Amanda's going to do at 11 o'clock, but that's where you find your Dot Loop. And also if you say add transaction, that's also going to take you to Dot Loop. Another feature that we have here for networking that's important is your water cooler. And so when you go into water cooler, it will actually give you a place to ask questions. It's really just like they talk about what is a water cooler? Well, it's a place where people just go and ask questions, just like you would at work. You kind of hang out and talk to each other. So any listing agents in Southern California, Los Angeles area has a listing need who needs an agent to host an open house for them. Here's today's, this is from last week, a schedule of classes. Sometimes I'll post that there. We also have, a lot of other things that happen on the water cooler. Another thing is to go into your profile. So I'm saving this for last because now we're going to get into ordering, marketing, and your profile. So up here, you probably don't have a picture there yet if you haven't loaded one, but you're going to say, view my profile. When you go into view my profile, it'll show your activity. And I'm going to go into my profile. So we're going to talk about how to upload this banner, and we're going to talk about how to upload your picture if you don't have one in LPT Connect yet. Also, we're going to talk about how to get this nice description here. Now, the most important thing, you can talk about being on the Schofield team or the Legacy Home Group, if that's where you are, so that people can connect with you there. But most importantly, you want to talk about all the areas that you cover or possible other languages that you speak. I know my daughter is an American Sign Language interpreter, and she has that on her profile. And last time I looked, when I searched ASL, she was the only person that came up in all of LPT. So if someone's working with a deaf client in Florida, at least, she would likely get that referral. So it's really important to fill out your profile as comprehensively as possible for your referral opportunities. Also, it gives you a list of all your activity. And of course, because I'm the Director of Specialized Education, I do a lot of education posting. But also it shows you my connections. So every person at LPT is given 30 tokens when you start, and you use those tokens to connect with other people on LPT. And so you'll see, if I want to send a referral, once you connect with someone on our LPT Connect system, you can send them a direct message. It is Robert's hope that we are going to get our LPT group off of Facebook, because even though we love our official LPT Facebook, you don't know who's watching that. And with the onset of AI, it's not going to be a physical person that's scouring the Facebook page to possibly it's from us. It's actually going to be a bot. It's going that can do it very quickly and very easily. They can make connections that we may lose some of our lead opportunities. So we want to get off of Facebook and get it here in our self-contained network where we know no one else is watching. So if I have to send a referral to San Antonio, Texas, I can pick one of my connections that I've already made. Maybe I've met them physically at an LPT social event. Maybe I've met them at a class that I took. Here's Kelly is in Las Vegas, and Taryn is here in Florida. The two of you are going to get to know each other today. Everybody at least can see what Kelly looks like. He looks like a great guy to send referrals from Las Vegas to. So this is something that we can do by using our connections. And again, I love this because I have some people that attend my refresh sessions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We do a thing called Refresh. It's real estate foundational refresh, our routines, establishing skills and habits, refresh. It's actually a mastermind for what I call boutique agents that do less than 12 transactions a year. And here, Jolyn in Texas, she loves to give out referrals to our group. She is a very active social media person, gets a lot of referrals in the also retired military. So she has a lot of military referrals. And we are connected. She's in our refresh group. I can see she's active right now. So if I sent her a message, she would likely get it because it's green. That means she's active. Also, Joyce here in Dunlap, Tennessee, I could send a message right now because we're connected and because I can see she's active by that being green. So that is our connections that happen through your profile. Make your profile as detailed as possible. Which takes us to the last and most comprehensive part of LPT Connect that you can't break it. So get in here and explore as much as possible. So you're going to come in here and you're going to go to marketing. So we have our marketing tab right here. And the first thing we want to do is set up our profile, right? This is what is going to appear on your profile. You can pick a color theme. For those of you on the Legacy Home group, you're definitely going to pick this wonderful purple. For me, I use the blue. But whatever color your team is affiliated with, or whatever color, if your team doesn't care, have your color. But I would assume you'll be on a team. And then you want to fill out your short bio. Again, this is what appears on your profile, so make it as comprehensive as possible. Associate it with your team if you can. Associate it, because someone may come to LPT Connect and say, I want to send a lead to the Schofield group in Las Vegas, but I don't know his email, or I don't even remember the name of the first name of Schofield group. I don't remember. I just know they're very active in Las Vegas. So if I put in Schofield team, then it will actually bring up everybody on the team if everyone has put it in their profile. So do your team affiliation, do the parts of town that you work in, that you specialize in. Also, maybe you're a pet-friendly realtor. We're going to be talking about specializations coming up at LPT in August, in our training sessions in August. Maybe you specialize in multi-generational properties. That's really popular now too. So what specialties do you have? Do you speak another language? I have some agents that speak 3 and 4 languages. This gives them 3 and 4 more opportunities than I have only speaking English, right? So definitely fill out your profile, and that's where you do it. Then you're going to come in here and you're going to fill out your photos. I use the same photo for everything, but you could have a team photo that might be your Power Pack headshot, might be a team shot, I don't know. But here's what's going to be in your profile. And then here you'll see you have the banner. So the banner, if you're familiar with Canva, you can go into Canva and just use what would be a LinkedIn banner fits best, or you could use a Facebook banner. If you go into Canva and design it, the measurements will be correct. But you can upload just a regular photo and it will be stretched out if it's not designed to be the right pixels. And then you'll see down here, we have all these opportunities to use social media. So when we won the Real Trends top 10 companies in the country, we produce a camera ready to be put to Facebook thing for you, which you can just pop your picture on. So it was just announced, you can pick any of these different ones so that if you're friends with a lot of realtors, they don't all look the same. We also won the AVA award for our technology. We went to all 50 states earlier this year. Those are all available for you as well. And so you can see I could go through 31 pages of social media posts that you can add. So, feel free to explore those. You're going to do your shipping and handling. Then we get into our communications platform. And let's come down here to agent marketing. So for your agent marketing, you can select your agent starter kit. Like I said, it's only $27, 250 business cards, 1 active marketing plan, and 1 9 critical questions magazines. You can do the short magazines, which I love. They are just a 2-pager, and they are literally only, they just is my daughter's team, and this is 7 home buyer strategies, but this just covers 1 strategy and then teases out the other 7 that you would have in the magazine. But this is only $1. So, you can get just a 2-page thing. It looks really professional. Have it at your open houses, obviously done with the colors of your team. We also have signs. You can get a yard sign, 5 open house signs for $150. The short magazines are just, like I said, these 2-page things. And then we have the other things that you can check out as well. So here are the full power packs. We have the active prospecting, active marketing plan, and then the 9 critical questions, the 7 strategies to the lowest payment, the buyer power pack for $99, and then the buyer power pack for $199, depending if you want the expanded power pack. Then we get into property marketing. Everyone has the ability to order a sample listing power pack for, I think it's, I want to say $99, but I'm not sure. It has 188 pieces. Let's see what happens when I say order. Oh, it's going to take me through the whole process. Anyway, there is a cost to it. I want to say it's $99 plus shipping, but I'm not sure. I apologize for that. Then we have our presentation boxes that are just launching, and we're going to have a 2-day seminar on them. And then we have our showcase listing power pack. And let's see if we watch the showcase listing showcase. That's a Zillow showcase ad. Then this is a really important one. Now you guys are on teams, so it's not maybe as important to you, but you can actually go into collaborative listings. So if you're an agent and you don't have your own listing, there are agents here that will allow you to purchase collateral for their listings. So you can actually market other agents' listings, and they're all listed, as close to me as possible. I live in Plant City, so this might be one I would choose and order marketing for that. Also, agents in the area will post any open house opportunities that they might have as well. Available open houses. It looks like there aren't any available nearby here right now, but you can offer to do open houses, and this is where they'll also have those social downloads, etc. for you. Now, when we get into property marketing, want to see if I have my properties. So this is a listing that I had. You're going to come out you have to have a listing in order to see this feature, but if you come in here and you say order marketing, you have the ability to do digital marketing, which is $99, and absolutely does do a great job at giving your house expanded exposure. You can order a power pack. You can order power mail, where we actually send postcards to up to 1,000 houses around a property. There also is this new listing collection, which is an upgraded power box, which includes magazines. And then also you can order our specific waterfront or ranch and land power package for associated with the property. So sometimes that's a little confusing. People don't see it at first and they're like, I can't order digital marketing. You have to have a listing in order to order digital marketing. So that is all I was planning to review today. I know it's a lot, and as I said, it's going to be reestablished.
So we are going to go over kind of the basics of .loop. There's a lot of information that we're going to be going through today. I'm also going to put in the chat a PDF agent guide. So this is this breaks down everything for you into different segments. So you don't have to worry about taking crazy notes. Everything will be in there for you. If you have used .loop before, some of these items that we'll go over will be a little repetitive. However, I will make sure I outline the LPT specifics. We'll go over all of the LPT required disclosures as well as how to fill out your intake form. If you do have any questions while we're going along, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat. I'm happy to help as we go along. So to begin, you want to make sure you see your LPT logo up here on the left corner. If you don't see the LPT logo, that means that you're most likely on a .loop profile that is not going to sync to Connect. So even if you've never actually used .loop as an agent, but let's say maybe you purchased a home, your agent that you were working with sent you a document to sign. Whenever you sign a document with .loop, it'll automatically create a free profile for you. So if you don't see that logo, you're most likely on a free or old account. If you are signing on with the credentials that LPT has given you and you still don't see the logo, please make sure you submit a support ticket. That's super important because we won't know you have a transaction if it's in the wrong profile. Another thing is if you are licensed in multiple states, you want to make sure you are putting your loop or creating your transaction in the appropriate loop for your state. So to toggle from state to state, you'll just click your name up here in the right corner. And then you can toggle between the states that you are licensed in. This is also really important because when you create your loop, it will also pull in the required documents for that state. So if you're, for example, I'm in Massachusetts right now, let's say I was doing a transaction in Rhode Island. If I created it in the Massachusetts loop, it's going to give me all the wrong documents. And then in addition, when you first start using .loop, it's really important to make sure you link your board or MLS. So that way you can pull in your forms if available directly through .loop. So to do that, you're going to again click your name here. You're going to click My Account. You're going to go to Profiles. And then scroll down to Company and Associations. So you should see LPT Realty with your state. And then right under that, you'll see Add Association. Click that, and you can either put in your state, or if you know your specific association, you can put that in as well. Say, I'll put in Massachusetts. When I do that, all of the associations that have relationships with .loop will pop up here. I'm going to select the state association because in Massachusetts, those are the forms that we use. But let's say in Connecticut, we use Connecticut forms, but some agents prefer their local board. That's totally fine too. You can just select whichever board you are a member of. You'll click Add, and then it'll ask you for your NERDS ID and password. You'll put that in, click Continue, and then all of the forms will be linked. If you don't see your board, that could mean that they just don't have a relationship with .loop, and you'll have to download the executed forms from whatever platform your state uses and then upload them into .loop. But it's very rare. There's only a few associations around the country that doesn't work with .loop. Before we move on, does everyone know how to find their NERDS ID, or does anyone need me to walk you through that? Good with finding your NERDS ID?
NERDS ID.
Someone need help with that? So
Yeah.
typically what I'll do is I just put in the search bar NERDS ID lookup. Oops, if I didn't spell it right, that would work. And then you can click really any of these links where it says find your member ID. It'll take you right there. You will enter your last name and email, and then once you click submit, your NERDS ID will pop up. So that's the ID that your dot loop is going to ask you for. Do this again so you can see in this pop-up. So the NERDS ID that you get here, you'll just come and put that here, and the password is always your last name. Okay. So now we ask that documents are uploaded to dotloop within 48 hours of getting a signature. So you are going, when you create your loop, you are going to click this blue add loop button. Again, you want to make sure you're in the right profile. If you're only licensed in one state, then that's perfect because you don't have the confusion between toggling between states. You are going to click add loop. If it is a buyer transaction, you are going to name it the buyer name. My buyer will be what I'm drinking right now, Fresca buyer. If it is a listing, then you can just go right ahead and make it the listing address. But if you're working with a buyer, obviously you're going to be getting forms signed before they've even secured a property. So you'll just name it your buyer's name and then click continue. You are going to select a loop template. So whichever loop template applies for that particular transaction. So in this case, I'm going to select buyer rep. I'm going to click continue. I can upload a photo, click done. And now your loop is created. Photos are not required. You can upload one if you want, but it's just an extra step that's not really needed. And then to get into your loop, you'll either click the house or click view loop. And then your loop will look something like this. Now keep in mind it will vary from state to state, but the outline is pretty much the same. So you'll see compliance checklist folder right here. When you click into that, this will be your state specific compliance checklist that will list the required documents as well as conditional documents and tell you when those are needed for each step of the transaction. And then you will have your required documents outlined based on each step of the transaction as well. So when you're first creating your loop, you are going to come here to the view details page. And this is where you're going to start adding your clients as people so you can get their signatures. But to begin, right under your name, you're going to see your email and then you're going to see none. This is an LPT specific step. You want to click this none and select your role. So in this particular case, I'm going to be the buyer's agent. So I'll put that there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adding my clients. Keep in mind, LPT will have access to your documents through this admin for LPT master. So that's how compliance will have access. However, if you need a document signed by your broker, I will go over how you'll send that in a minute. So for your clients, you're going to select add person. You're going to put in their name, their email, and you're going to select a role. Now you're going to do this step for each one of your clients, and each one of your clients will need a unique email address. That's super important for auditing. So let's say the real estate commission does an audit on your file and they need to see that buyer A and buyer B both signed independently. That is how they'll be able to tell that with separate emails. You'll click add person, and you'll do that again for each of your clients. Any questions on that?
Where's the NARDS ID going again?
The NERDS ID will go when you link your boards. So the first step when you're going into profile, when you select your association, it'll ask you for your NERDS ID and your last name. And that's also in the handout. So there's, let me see what page. So the handout has like the process and then table of contents, so forth. So it's the very first section. We'll walk you through that. If you need a broker's signature, you are going to add them to the client. You're going to click add person. you'll put your broker's name. However, the email you are going to use is the state abbreviation brokers@lptrealty.com. So if you're in Florida and you're sending it to Natalie, it would be Natalie Cox for the full name. Email would be flbrokers@lptrealty.com and so forth. For the role, you can just select other and then click add person. But again, you don't have to add the broker unless you need their signature on something. Did someone have a question?
So Amanda, the broker is different than compliance. So they only need to identify the broker if they need a signature on something specific.
Correct, exactly. Yep. And the reason for that is if you send the signature request to the broker's not personal email, but LPT email, a lot of times it gets blocked. So if you send it to this state email, it creates a ticket, and then you're ensured that your document will get signed and not lost. But if it's just something that you need compliance or you're just your broker to have access to, but you don't need their signature, they'll automatically have access to that. So once you're done adding the people, you're going to click save. You're going to come back. And now you have your buyer documents. So if this was a listing, obviously this section would be your listing documents. You would have all of these signed. So the first one is our affiliated business. That's an LPT required disclosure, sales disclosure, and wire fraud, which we'll go over all of those in a moment. And then your listing documents, if this was a listing, there would be these documents for that side of the transaction, as well as any of the other listing documents in this folder. Listings, you would get these documents signed and then submit for review within 48 hours of getting a signature. However, these buyer documents, you're just going to get them signed, and they're going to sit here in the loop until there's an executed contract, purchase and sales. So you'll see there's some boldface documents here. This is what's called an interactive form, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Then we have these grayed out document names. This is where you have to input a PDF. So MLS printout, obviously that's not going to be living in .loop. You'd have to upload that from MLS. So that's when it's grayed out. So let's go into our affiliated business. So these interactive forms, you'll see this pop up when you go into them. It'll say autofill. It'll have your buyer's names listed here because you've already added them in the previous section that we went over. And you're going to click autofill. These documents now will automatically assign your clients to the fields. So this particular document, this is just disclosing the other businesses that Robert Palmer has ownership interest in. We do need to get this signed by our clients, whether it's the buyer, the seller, the tenant, or the landlord. There is one for each type of client. So you'll click save. You'll go back to do the rest of them. Sales disclosure, again, autofillable, so you can just click autofill. If you're representing the buyer, then seller will be blank. These required disclosures are only to be sent to the party you're representing. So although this says seller, it's just that this same document is for either side, but this will only go to the client you're representing, and in this case, that's a buyer. So they're signing it when you're first meeting them, so you won't have a property address yet, so you can leave that blank. And then you're going to put your transaction fee here that's payable to LPT. So either $195, NNA, or whatever transaction fee you're charging, that does have to be listed here. And then when you scroll down, your client's signatures will automatically be assigned to those fields. You'll click save. I'm not sharing them yet because I want to share them all at once, and I'll show you why in a moment. And we have our wire fraud agreement. Again, we'll click autofill. And your client's signatures will be on the bottom. So then I'll click save. And then these documents, these are just state specific. So yours will obviously look different if you're not an agent in Massachusetts, but you'll want to get all of these documents signed at once. So in order to share something for signature, you are going to select all of the documents you're looking to share at once, and then you're going to click share. When you do that, you'll see this pop up. It'll say your clients that are assigned to the fields, and then you'll see can sign. If it's something that they have to fill out and sign, such as disclosures or maybe a lead paint disclosure, you can click can sign and then come down here to can fill and sign. Otherwise, you can just leave it to can sign and then click share. So they will now get an email that they have 3, 4, 5, however many documents you're sending them to sign, and it will instruct them through each one until they've completed the entire package. Versus if you send each one of these separately, they're going to get individual emails, and it's very easy for someone to miss a document. So that's why I always recommend sharing them together. Now, if you need to add a document, so let's say there's a document that's required for this type of transaction, or maybe you have created the document on, let's say, Transaction Desk, and you want to upload it into Dotloop. There's a few different ways you can add documents. You'll click this blue Add Document button, and then you'll have the options Templates, Browse, and Email. So by clicking Templates, this will enable you to go down to your board or association library and get any state-specific documents. If you go to LPT Realty Master, that's where you can get all of our LPT required documents. This is also where you can go in and get the commission invoice for rentals. Keep in mind, rentals, we do not send a commission invoice out. You actually have to go in here to LPT Realty Master, put in invoice, and pull in the invoice by clicking the document name and clicking copy. So that's how you would pull in a document from Templates. If you are uploading a document from your computer, you'll simply go to Browse, click the document that you like to bring in, and now that's been uploaded. And then the final one is email. So let's say you received an email from the listing agent, and you wanted that document in your loop. You can simply forward it to this unique email address. Now, let's say you had all of your buyer documents signed in person, and you want to upload them all as one giant PDF that looks like this. So all of your documents all in one. You can totally do that. However, you will need to split that giant PDF into individual PDFs because we will need to move them to their appropriate placeholder in order to submit for review. So in order to do that, and again, this step is only needed if you have a giant PDF that you need to split into individuals. So to do that, you go up to File, Split Document, and then you see this pop up here. So you're going to split document into, we're going to say 6. And then you can go through and name each document and make sure the pages are correct. Say our buyer's agreement is 9 to 11. We're just going to adjust the pages here. Make sure the pages all look right. And then we'll click Split Document. You'll click Done. And now when you go back into your loop, that giant PDF has now been split into 6 individual PDFs, and we can now move them. Okay. The reason why we need to move these documents is because the system, let's say you have the wire fraud up here, but the wire fraud is empty down here, the system will not recognize that wire fraud is in this folder, so it's not going to let you submit for review because there's a required document missing. So in order to move them, you are going to click and hold the document you'd like to keep and drag it to where you'd like it to go. You're going to hover over where you'd like it to go. You'll see Replace With. You'll let go. You're going to see this pop up, and you'll click Yes, and now it's moved to the appropriate place. So we'll do that again with Affiliated. Drag it, click and drag to where you want it to go, let go, and then click Yes. Okay. Now for these grayed out placeholders where you need to upload a document, you can just simply click Required or Optional, whatever it is saying, and you'll see Add File. You'll click that, and then you can pull in the document from your computer. So that's how you would add a document that way. So with buyer transactions, you're going to get all of your buyer documents signed. You're going to start touring properties. Once they have secured a property, then you'll go into the under contract and start uploading the executed documents here. Once it is under contract, you are also going to come back to this details page, and you're going to rename the loop the property address. So you'll just click the loop name and put in the property address instead of the buyer's name. And then you're also going to select a loop status. So you'll go to under contract. We're going to click save. When you go back to the loop, it's now going to ask you for a purchase price and closing date. So you'll put that in. And if this were to change the purchase price or the closing date, you would just want to make sure you upload the supporting documentation and then also change it here. Then you're going to, like I said, upload all of your pending documents. And this is also the time where you will do your intake form. Keep in mind, Massachusetts looks a little different. We have under contract and pre-closing because we go into a contract to purchase for 10 days before we go into our purchase and sales. So that's why it's split into two. So don't get confused by that. But when you do have an accepted contract, that is when you are going to do your intake form. Intake form looks like this. Again, you can click autofill, although your clients do not sign this. This is just an internal document. So execution date would be the date in which the purchase and sales was signed. The date submitted is the date in which you're doing this form. Commission, you can either put a percentage or flat amount. MLS fee, if you don't know what this means, most likely it doesn't pertain to your state. There's a few states that do charge agents an MLS fee on listings, so that's why that's there. Type of sale, lead source. Commission check payable to, this will be only LPT agents listed here. So if you're doing a transaction with Joe Smith from ABC Realty, they will not be listed here. It would only be the LPT agents getting paid. This section here will only be visible if you are in a single check state. Single check state means that you leave closing with a check made out to LPT and you have to wait for LPT to pay you. In those states, you will need to select a way in which you'd like LPT to get paid. Wire, there's a $30 fee charge to the agent. Deposit link, there's a $10 fee charge to the agent. Mailing of a check is always the slowest method, and it does get mailed to Lake Mary. And then agent will pick up check from title. That's always the fastest way to get paid. So you'll select whichever option, and then on the commission invoice that's sent out, it will have the instructions to title or the attorney based on whichever method you selected. If you are in a split check state and you get to leave the closing with a check made out to you, you don't have to worry about this. They can just mail the LPT's to LPT. Once you do leave the closing, if you do leave the closing with an LPT check, the instructions on how to deposit it are here. You can either deposit it in Chase or Truist, or you can use our mobile deposit app through JP Morgan. If you need access to that, you just have to request access through Commission Concierge. But regardless, whichever way you make the deposit, you do want to submit a ticket to accounting on Connect, including the file address, photo of the receipt, and the photo of the check, so they can match the deposit to your file faster. Low GCI opt-in, if your commission is less than $2,500, you'll select yes here, and the LPT will just take a flat 20%. It doesn't count towards cap, and the $195 transaction is waived. If it's listed on the MLS, property address, seller name, buyer name, who you're representing, per the sales disclosure, what your client is being charged. So the amount on the sales disclosure should match this box here. If you're representing both sides, what is the fee for each side? Realtor credit amount. So this is only if you're giving the buyer or seller a credit out of your commission. Title company information. This will be either the title company or the closing attorney if you're in an attorney state. You want to make sure this is accurate here because this is how your commission invoice is going to be sent out. So you want to make sure the email in particular is correct. Opposing agent information, transaction coordinator information, team split. So you are all on team, so you'll want to make sure all of this is filled out, and then you and your team lead will need to sign here. Referral info, this would be for an outside LPT referral, that would go here, and then an internal LPT referral would be listed here, and then that referring agent would sign. Any notes to compliance you can add here, and then you will again sign at the bottom of this form. So this is the preferred way to do your intake form for teams. I'm sure you either have heard or will hear about the Intake Wizard on Connect. Right now, we are keeping that just for solo agents. It's not properly set up for teams at this moment, so we are still doing the intake form through Dotloop for teams. Any questions on the intake form? We'll save this and then go back. We don't want to share it. Okay. So again, we're under contract now. We've changed the property, the loop name to the property address. We've added the under contract status. We've added the price, the closing date. We are going to say we have uploaded all of the pending documents and we've done the intake form. Now we have to submit our buyer docs and our pending docs for review. Keep in mind, if this was a listing, the listing documents would have been submitted for review as immediately getting your listing. So as soon as you got those signatures for that listing agreement, you would have submitted that file for review. But for buyers, you can't submit the buyer documents until you have an executed contract. So to submit documents for review, you are going to click the checkbox next to the folder name. Now keep in mind, it does select every box in that folder. So you have to make sure your folders are complete, for at least the required documents are there. So if you were doing buyer and pending, you would select both, and then you would come up here to submit for review. So I'm going to submit this folder, compliance. You'll never have to submit this compliance checklist folder. I'm just doing this as a sample because all the documents are there, so it'll let me submit it. So I'll click the folder, I'll click submit for review. You will get this pop-up if it doesn't recognize the property address, and that's totally fine. You can just put property in again. But if you don't see this and you just see the next screen, that's totally normal. The submit for review. This is normally what you'll see if it recognizes the address. So you'll select the folders that you're submitting for review. It should say LPT Corporate Review, and then you'll click submit. And that is how you submit your file for compliance review. Then once you have the closing, you'll come in here, you'll upload the closing documents, you'll come to under contract and move it to sold. So again, for buyer loops, you are going to use a loop name named your buyer name until they have an executed contract. Once they have an executed contract, then you can change it to the property address. If, let's say, after inspections it falls through, you will just want to make sure you upload the termination or the withdrawal, and then you will want to make sure you either download your buyer documents, or you can use the same loop. You just want to make sure you change the names and override the uploads.
The tile would change. So this is what it would look like on Real Estate First Friday. On Friday this week, you'll see you can just come in here and click that. Remember, we're going to go definitely to the 11 o'clock session on Mondays and the 11 o'clock on Fridays, and that is in Eastern time. I also wasn't able to show you the digital presentation from my screen because I'm not an agent, so I don't have that option. But here is what it looks like. You do have 8 different possible documents that are in that digital presentation, and you can completely edit them. And so it has these topics, definitely gives you the pre-brokerage disclosure. This does not replace your state required brokerage agreement. It simply satisfies that NAR rule that we all have to, the new law that we all have to get a BBA signed. And so this does satisfy that requirement, the legal requirement. It doesn't satisfy your state specific requirement. So it has the benefits of home ownership, the best practices for house hunting, 8 reasons to work with LPT, find the perfect home with our proprietary strategies, understanding the updated process. Now, the BBA is now a part of our system, so you could go in and you could actually remove this document that explains why we have to get this signed. And then it also gives you other resources that are available at LPT. So really good document to just keep on hand for when you get stuck without a specific buyer brokerage agreement. So why did you join a team? There's many reasons why agents join a team. It's not just for leads. As a matter of fact, there's teams here at LPT that don't even provide leads at all. But sometimes we're joining for the community, we're joining for the leadership, we're joining for the mentorship of the team leader. Maybe we just want workspace. We want to have an office to go to, and our team is providing that. Oftentimes it's collaboration. It's really hard to work alone, and real estate is a strange business. We have to work alone to accomplish our goals, but we also need the interaction with others. So that's a reason why some people will join a team. You have a great advantage that you're on a Teams Growth Plus team because you're getting the added support of the Teams Growth Plus community. So as an individual member on a team, you also get to leverage the team production and reviews. So don't forget to lean in to the fact that you have a highly accomplished team leader, that you can actually talk about their accomplishments in order to stand on the shoulders of giants when you're speaking with customers and say, our team sold 300 homes last year. That's impressive. And especially when you're new, it's really difficult to have those conversations like, well, I'm really good at this, but you're going to be my first customer, right? So when we can lean in to the success of the team, sometimes that gives us extra success and confidence. So why is the database so important? The database. You are going to constantly hear about this with your team leader, possibly with your director of operations on your team. And so why is it so important? Because the database is the ultimate data builder. Even if your team is a Zillow Flex team and they actually are getting you tons of internet leads, those leads do not have the quality that database leads have. And so with cold leads or internet leads, quantity matters. As a matter of fact, internet leads generally convert at about 2%, which means you're going to talk to 100 people in order to get to closings. And you're going to talk to those 100 people multiple times. Within your sphere of influence, however, the opposite is true. It's actually the quality of the relationship that adds to the lead. And so most teams are going to ask you to review who do you know. We're going to put them into our lead generation system, and we're going to build on the relationship that you started. And so it's very common for your team leader to request contacts from you to put into the team database. What we're looking for is a Mickey. Even though I'm in Florida, Mickey does not stand for the mouse over in Orlando. It stands for a motivated individual with correct contact information. That is really what builds a business and what builds your database. So what is your goal in collecting? So maybe you have someone's phone number in your phone and you know them, but you never took the time to take down their address because you don't send them things in the mail. Well, one of the things you want to do for the database is really complete the information with their full name, their mailing address, their phone number, and their email address, because likely you'll have a system within your team that leverages text messaging, that uses email for a monthly newsletter, and also they're probably going to have some mail, physical mail that gets sent in the mail to them. So really important when you look at your database to make sure you're getting at least 75% of that database complete with full contact information. So sometimes the team will not actually have you have access to the team database until you accomplish certain benchmarks. So if you are on a team that doesn't give you access right away to the team CRM, then use this QR code. This QR code sets up a spreadsheet that you can automatically start entering people as you meet them at open houses and things like that, people from your phone and people that you know, friends and family members. You can start putting them into this spreadsheet so that when you do have access to the team CRM, it's ready to go. So why is it so important? The database actually is the sustained revenue generation of the team. Even teams that pay a lot of money for internet lead generation really do still rely mostly on that database. So it's going to reduce the acquisition costs rather than paying thousands and thousands of dollars a month for analytic leads and things like that. It actually can access the leads that are bubbling up from the people that are already in the database or in, more importantly, the sphere of influence. It's word of mouth marketing. It's a stable customer base. You start to develop a knowing of who your customers are when you're working through your database. And it also gives you a feedback loop for improvement. So we can survey our database. We can have parties where we talk to them and ask them what services they would like us to improve or include in the future. Working within a database structure actually really helps the team improve because you have a place where you can access feedback and take surveys and do that kind of thing. So one of our listing power rules, and this is why I like to go over them in the beginning, is to show up like no one else. So how can you show up like no one else when you're working with people? Well, we have to communicate with our database. So first thing is with personal touches. We're not just going to throw them in a machine. We're not going to just put them in a computer and start letting AI communicate with them. We're actually going to go in and have systematized personal touches with people. We're going to connect with them on social media. Once you've put them in the database, go in there and try to find them on TikTok or Instagram, or follow them and connect with them on LinkedIn or Facebook. We want to send cards. The U.S. Postal Service does a survey, and the average American receives only 21 pieces of handwritten mail per year. That means less than 2 pieces of mail per month that are handwritten going into a consumer's mailbox. That's going to stand out a lot more than the thousands of emails they could get in a month. So how about phone calls? Are you going to use that text machine that you have to actually make a phone call? And then sending emails or newsletters, likely your team will have a monthly communication that they want to get out. And so you want to make sure that you have your customers and your sphere of influence in the team database, so they're getting that monthly communication, especially if you're starting to sell some houses. It gives you credibility. And then also your team will likely host events. But even if your team isn't hosting an event, you can actually use the database to promote local events like a shred event or a local food drive or something like that. So events are always a great way to touch your database. So we're going to talk about building relationships, and we're going to use this acronym CANDOR. But before I get going, does anybody have any questions or comments they want to make about database or anything we've talked about this morning so far? I definitely don't like to teach lecture style, so would welcome your input or questions.
No questions so far. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so how do we build relationships? We put everybody, boom, boom, boom. We put them all in a database. Now what do? We just let it automate? Well, we have to build relationships, and we build those relationships, and we're going to use the acronym CANDOR. So the first thing is communicate effectively and regularly. So we want to have regular, relevant communication. We're going to do that through emails, phone calls, social media, in-person meetings. We want to make sure that we're giving space, as you can see in this picture, by a two-way exchange. You see she's got a notepad there and is, maybe even taking some notes on what he's sharing with her. So a part of that communication is just letting them speak as well. So authenticity matters. So are you showing up as your genuine self? Or, it would be silly for me to be like, hey, why don't we go to the local sporting event? Because I wouldn't even know what's happening, right? But I might invite them to go see a music venue or something like that. So we're going to breed trust when we show up as our authentic self. Then we can also nurture that relationship. So always be following up without using the word follow up. I have a great class I teach called Nurture 365, and it talks about following up without the FU, right? We definitely don't want to say follow up. It just sounds cold and calculated. We want to just check in with people. We want to ask questions and just build the relationship through nurturing the relationship. Remember, leads are people. So we also want to deliver value, and we're going to talk a lot about that when we get back from lunch. And after Amy, we're going to go into an exercise on value. Are you confident in the value you provide? And are you up to speed with what the value proposition of your team is? If you're not really familiar with it, it's time to really dig in and get familiar with the value proposition. And then outstanding customer service. You can't just be so-so. There's a lot of so-so realtors out there. You need to have something that sets you apart. Again, one of our listing power rules, show up like no one else. What I will tell you is don't complain. Definitely don't complain. People want to be with people that want to give them service. Have you gone and I've had some terrible dining experiences lately. I'm not sure if any of you are experiencing the same thing, but I have started just cooking at home more and more because it's almost like I'm bothering them by going and ordering food at their restaurant. And I want to have an experience. I don't want to just eat some food. If I'm going to do that, I can eat at home. So, what are you doing to show that you're going to provide outstanding customer service? And then how about real understanding? People want to do business with someone who took the time to really get to know them and to understand what they were looking for in a home. And this is really difficult because we might have opinions of places, oh, I would never own a condo. That's probably true of me. I'm a dog person. I'm probably never going to live in a condo. But I've sold many condos over the years because that was perfect for the lifestyle of my customer. So don't bring your opinion into it. How are you going to really show that you understand what they're looking for a home? Put your personal things aside and focus on what the benefits and opportunities are for them. Showing that you are looking out for their best interests, not just what you would do. So here's a QR code to something that's how talks about how to overcome reluctance. So many of you are like, oh, how are we going to do all this stuff? I've got to go in and call the database. I've got to call my friends and family members. I've got to try to make these relationships. And I just joined a team so they would hand me some leads, you know? That's not what this is about. It's really about building relationships for yourself and for the team. So how are you going to overcome reluctance? Well, here's a QR code you can use, and it's going to take you to a document like this. And this document talks about how to overcome reluctance. So the first thing is to be prepared and to practice. So practice with your dog, practice with your spouse, practice with your aunt and uncle and cousins until you're really familiar with the delivery of your value proposition. I don't know about you, but when I pay money to go to a concert, my daughters and I went to see Billy Joel a couple of years ago, and man, was it a fantastic performance. Even though he's an old man, he really knew how to put on a great show. And that's what we expected. We didn't expect him to come out there and say, oh, you know, I'm kind of rusty. Do you mind if I practice a few scales before we get started? No, I want a performance, and so does your customer. So are you prepared? And have you practiced? Focus on helping, not selling. So we want to make sure that we're really understanding what they're looking for. How can we help them? Don't be focused on that end ticket item of a closed sale, but really how can you help them through the process? Just embrace rejection as a part of the process. We are going to experience rejection, but we're not going to experience rejection with our sphere of influence because all we're doing is offering help. Start with a warm-up routine. Maybe you want to call someone that's friendly when you're first starting out on a calling day, or you know, to stop by at a friend's house if you're going to go out and go door knocking. Try to build genuine rapport. Taryn says rejection equals redirection. Love it. I love that. And every no gets you that much closer to a yes. And we're going to talk about this later this afternoon, knowing your numbers. What is your conversion ratio? Because if I know that it takes 30 people to talk to before I get to one yes, if I'm on call 13 and I've heard my 13th no, I know I just need, 18 more and I'm going to have a deal for the day. So, knowing your conversion ratio, knowing that each no leads you to a yes. And then stay positive and reframe your negative thoughts. We are going to sometimes have one of those experiences that kind of takes us aback. So take a minute, put on some great music, dance around, reset your body, reset your mind, and keep going. Set a consistent call schedule. You should always know a rhythm, and we talk a lot about that in many of the classes that I teach, including we'll talk a little bit about that today, but set a consistent call schedule of when you're going to reach out to people. Use tracking and absolutely celebrate wins. This is a huge benefit of being on a team. If I'm here by myself in my little office here and I get someone to agree to a listing appointment, I go, yay, me, go. Yeah, it's over. But when you're on a team, there's usually ways to celebrate, ring a bell, walk around, have someone pat you on the back. It feels really good. And then always keep improving. Each time you do a presentation, take a minute. Wow, I could have said this when they said that. I'm going to do that next time. Always improve your presentation. And of course, practice self-care. Like, you matter. Absolutely, you matter, and you should take care of yourself as well. So this is available. If you just go ahead and use this QR code, you will be able to print that out and keep that next to your phone or wherever you need inspiration. Put it on your mirror in the morning to remind you, you matter, and there's definitely a rhythm that you can establish to keep going. All right. Now, we're going to talk about mastering conversation models. We'll probably only get a little bit further through this, but we'll try to get through it before lunch. All right, so master conversation models. So what are some of those models? One is effective appointment setting with something we call the RVA. We're going to build rapport, establish value, and then ask for the business, ask for the audition. This is a mistake many agents make. They spend a lot of time building the rapport. They know their value. They've expressed their value proposition, and then they're like, oh, let me wait for them to ask me. Well, it's that vulnerability thing. It's that thing where some people are like, how come, that guy always has more dates than I do? Well, because he's vulnerable and he says, hey, will you go out with me? The other guy's like waiting for someone else to ask, right? So I always tell my husband that. I'm like, you can't always wait to be invited places with his friends. He's like, oh, they haven't called me. I'm like, well, call them, right? So ask for the audition. So build personal connections with Ford. So how many of you are familiar with the Ford method? Well, it's funny that we live in a world where people are very anxious to express themselves, and sometimes we're alienating people with that self-expression, right? And so Ford is a place as a salesperson where you can stay in safe rapport building conversation. So Ford is, people always love to talk about their family, invite people to share things about their family, ask questions about their family. People love to talk about their work. Sometimes them talking about their work actually helps us match them to a property that might be great for them. And then people love to talk about their recreation. Are they boaters? Are they golfers? Are they people that enjoy a hobby of crafting or quilting or doing something that they love to talk about? Well, invite them to talk about those things. People love to share, but they want to share within a safe space, and Ford creates that safe space. So family, occupation, recreation, and then dreams. Dreams, you could use the acronym FORM and talk about motivation, but people like to talk about their future or why they're motivated to purchase a home. And it's safe to talk about that because we're staying focused on them and what they see in the future. Don't talk about politics. I have some agents that argue with me and they're like, well, if I express my politics, then people that agree with me will want to work with me. But the people that don't agree with you may not want to. So we avoid politics. We avoid religion. We avoid, even if we sense that someone may share our something that we do, we want to avoid it because, you don't know if using foul language, maybe they drop the F-bomb, but does that invite you to do it? I don't know. We want to stay in this safe framework of Ford. Talk about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And then how else can we build rapport beyond words? Well, one is called mirror and matching. And if any of you have ever had a sibling where, if you say, look at that, and your brother says, oh, look at that. Like mirror and matching is not like the way your sibling used to tease you where they mimicked everything you do. So be very careful with mirror and matching. But what it means is mirror and matching means if I speak quickly, and I'm from Jersey, you from Jersey, we having a good time, we're going to go down to Delhi. Like if I'm talking at that pace, it's not a good time for me to say, oh, would you like to see this home first? Or I was thinking maybe we could take a ride and then go to another. Like we don't want to go slow when they're speaking quickly, but we also want to, it's not, not like one of the dangerous things people do and they think they're mirror and matching, but they're really blowing it, is when someone says, oh, my son is really brilliant. He started reading at 4 years old. And then you say, oh, well, my daughter started reading at 3. Like it becomes a competition. So we have to be really careful with mirror and matching that we are just using it to build rapport, not to do a conversation that starts a one-upmanship, right? So be really careful with that. And then active listening, sometimes repeating back what someone says to you shows that you were really listening, but mostly silence shows that you're listening. You can't listen and talk at the same time. And unfortunately, as really friendly people who like people, which all realtors I hope are, we can tend to talk too much. And people may not feel that we've heard them. So active listening, like be a fierce active listener, radical active listening, really understanding and questioning when someone says something, not questioning like an interrogation, but say, oh, tell me more about that. That sounds really exciting. Let them share with you and really actively listen to what they're saying. And then avoid yes and no questions or questions that are very simple to answer. Ask open-ended questions. What would it do for you if you were able to buy a home? And then really listen. Don't say, oh, so you want to buy a house? They're going to say yes. Then you're done. But what would buying a home do for you? That's a much better question because it's open-ended and it takes them into their dreams. Oh, that's going to allow me to build generational wealth. That's going to allow me to have a yard for my son. See the difference between, would you like to buy a home? Yes. Or what would owning a home do for you? Totally different questions. And then active listening, like I said, go beyond active listening to radical listening. You want to listen and hear attentively, empathize with the emotions. Again, sometimes people could get choked up. I've developed this course on multi-generational and life stage selling. And a lot of times people will sell a home when someone in their family has died. Someone has lost their husband. And especially here in Florida, you know, God's waiting room, right? Hey, Nevada's not far behind us either. But, you know, we have a lot of elderly people and they may lose a spouse or a partner, and we want to empathize with their thoughts about selling their home. And then always, again, ask open-ended questions, not just yes and no questions, and always reflect and summarize. So let them speak. I often say to people, would you mind if I take some notes? And I've really never had anyone say yes. Everyone says, oh no, of course not. And they really actually, I think, appreciate that I'm writing things down and I'm confirming with them. So you're saying you absolutely must have the plant school district. Okay, that does limit us. Is that okay with you? You know, really confirming what they've said and that I'm writing it down sometimes makes them feel like I pay more attention than the other agent that they interviewed, and it helps build rapport. So what are some examples of open-ended questions? Like I shared one before, what would owning a home do for you? What would this do for your ability to see your family more often? So maybe in our initial interview, and I was talking with them, you know, they said, oh, I really want to move to this area because it's near my sister. And then I might say, you know, if you bought a home here, what would it do for getting to see your sister more often? What would that do for your life? And then maybe they've met with me because their landlord just increased their rent. I've learned that through my active listening. So what impact would predictable monthly payments have on your ability to manage money without stress? So I'm asking, what's that going to do for you to regulate that monthly payment? And if you were able to move into a new home where each of your children could have their own bedroom, what would that do for your family? I mean, maybe they've shared with you, like, we're just busting out of the seams of our 1,400 square foot house. We just need more space for these kids. You know, if they've said that, ask them if you were able to move into a home where each of your children had their own bedroom. All of these things are taking you closer to your goal, but it's also showing that you really are listening, asking open-ended questions so that they feel that you're going to be the answer to their pain. So how do we establish value? We can offer market insights. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to be becoming a market insight leader class. But that's really helpful to understand what's happening in your market. What is it going up? Is it going down? Is this the time where we're shifting from a seller's market to a buyer's market? We might be able to do some great negotiation for you. But some pockets in our world aren't shifting into a buyer's market, even though the news might be indicating that. Some areas are still extremely tight and still experience multiple offers. So how are you going to show that you really know your micro market? And then be authentic and understand client motivation. So what value do you bring in? What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? And can you offer more in value than you ask in payment? So here are the universal building blocks that go into establishing value. Are you going to give quality service? Let's check that box. Yes. Do you have some market expertise, or do you need to fill in some gaps on that? How about your negotiation skills? We're going to talk a lot about that this afternoon. Of course, we all have a lockbox key, I hope, and will provide access to homes. And then, do you have a strong legal and ethical compass? Is your compass set high so that you have high standards? So here on the screen are some unique building block words. And here's, right before our lunch break, we're going to just do a quick exercise. I'm going to ask each of you to take 5 minutes to come up with a value proposition. So if I'm meeting someone for the first time, I'm going to say, it's so great to meet you. My name is Lisa Spencer. I've been a realtor for 30 years, but what I'm most passionate about is helping first-time home buyers access the American dream. I work with a lender that actually assists with credit restoration, and I can help you if you are trying to establish the lowest monthly payment with our 7 strategies to the lowest monthly payment. And I just want to let you know you're in good hands, because one of my most passionate things is helping first-time home buyers. Now, this is just one value proposition I have. Obviously, if it's not a first-time home buyer, I'm not going to lean into that. But what will you say that makes me feel confident in working with you? So I'm going to leave these words on the screen, just maybe 3 or 4 sentences. Put those together in the next 5 minutes. We'll come back